Montana Territory, September 1882. Quinn Foster saw the movement first. A rustle in the tall grass just beyond the fence line. He stepped off the porch of his homestead, rifle loose in his hands, boots crunching on the dry earth. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the field, and the wind carried the scent of pine and the distant tang of smoke. Then he saw her. A woman, thin and dirt-smudged, down on her knees in the soil behind his fence. Her fingers scraped at the earth like she was trying to pull something out of it. A baby, no older than a year, sat tucked in a threadbare shawl on her back, wide-eyed and silent. Quinn lowered the rifle. "Hey," he said, not unkindly. "You looking to steal my potatoes or just dig a hole to sleep in?" The woman froze. Her head turned slowly. She did not run. "I am just trying to find something to eat," she said, voice raw. "For her?" Quinn looked at the baby. Her cheeks were red from the wind, her lips dry. She did not cry. He stepped closer. "There's nothing growing there now. Frost came through last week." "I know," the woman whispered. She looked down at her hands. "I hoped maybe something got missed." Quinn took a breath and leaned the rifle against the fence. "What's your name?" "Zadie." "Zadie Jameson." He crouched a few feet from her. "Where's her father?" Zadie's eyes met his green, sharp even through exhaustion. "Dead, died in Kansas last winter, fever. We were headed west. I did not know where else to go." Quinn nodded once. "What's her name?" "Tessa." Zadie's arms wrapped instinctively around the child. Tessa blinked up at him, her head resting against her mother's shoulder. "You got anyone?" he asked. "Family?" She shook her head. "I had a brother in Wyoming." "He's gone too." Quinn stood, brushed the dirt off his trousers, and looked at the woman and her baby. Everything about her said she had not eaten in at least 2 days. She had no boots, just worn through stockings and cracked soles tied to her feet with twine. "Come inside," he said. Zadie blinked. "What?" He nodded toward the house. "Come inside, wash up, feed the baby, you two, then we'll talk." Zadie hesitated, arms tightening around Tessa. "You can stay outside and freeze, or you can trust me for one night," he said. "Your choice." She stood slowly, her legs shook but held. She followed him through the gate, across the yard and into the cabin. Inside it was warm, a fire crackled in the hearth. The scent of stew hung in the air. Quinn grabbed a clean tin bowl and ladled stew into it, setting it on the table. "Sit," he said. Zadie eased down, unwrapping Tessa from her shawl. The baby stirred but did not fuss. Quinn brought over a second bowl and a tin cup of water. "You eat first," Zadie murmured to Tessa, gently spooning broth into her daughter's mouth. Quinn watched her. She was careful, measured. She did not rush. Even starving, she put the child first. He cleared his throat. "You two sleep here tonight. You can take the bed, I'll take the floor." Zadie looked up. "Why are you helping me?" Quinn met her eyes. "Because you needed it. And because I do not like seeing good people treated like strays." Zadie did not answer, but something in her face softened. That night, Quinn lay on a blanket by the fire. He could hear Tessa breathing quietly. He could hear Zadie whispering to her, too soft to make out the words. Her voice was gentle, steady. In the morning, she was still there, not gone like he half expected. He handed her a warm biscuit. "You planning on heading somewhere?" Zadie hesitated. "I do not know." Quinn looked at her, the way she cradled Tessa in one arm and ate with the other, her eyes still tired but not as hollow. He set his mug down. "Zadie," she met his gaze. "I have a question," he said, "and I want you to think about it before you answer." She nodded, cautious. He leaned forward. "Will you stay and marry me?" Zadie stared at him. "I do not expect anything from you except honesty. You and Tessa need a home. I have one. I could use someone who knows how to keep a child alive and warm, and maybe I would like the company." She blinked. "You do not know me." "I know enough. You did not steal. You kept walking until your feet bled. You fed your baby before yourself. That tells me everything." Zadie looked down at Tessa, who was curled against her chest, soft and sleeping. "I cannot offer you riches or softness," Quinn said. "But I can give you safety and steadiness and a warm place for her to grow up." Zadie was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You do not have to marry me to help us." "I know," he said. "But I want to." She studied him again, eyes narrowing slightly, like she was reading a book she could not quite trust yet. "Let me help," he said again, quieter. Zadie's shoulders dropped. She looked at Tessa, then back at him. "All right," she said. But just until I know this is real, Quinn gave a small nod. Fair enough. He stood and offered her his hand. Zadie took it. Her fingers were cold. He held them gently. They were not in love yet, but something had begun, something real. The morning after Zadie agreed to stay, the wind picked up from the north and brought with it the scent of snow not far off. Quinn stood on the porch with his hat pulled low and watched the tree line. The sky had that hard, pale look it got before the first real cold. Late September didn't wait long up here. Behind him, Zadie moved quietly through the cabin. He heard the soft clatter of wood being stacked near the stove, the creak of the floorboards under her feet. Tessa babbled to herself in a low, contented murmur. When Quinn stepped back inside, Zadie was kneeling near the hearth, coaxing the flame higher with a twist of dry moss. She had tied her hair back with a strip of muslin from a flour sack. It kept falling over her brow, and she kept pushing it back without thinking. "That wind's dropped 20 degrees since sunrise," he said, setting his gloves on the table. "We'll need to bank the fire high tonight." "I already brought in the rest of the kindling from the shed," she said, not looking up. "The logs by the wall were a little damp, but I split the driest ones." "You know your way around a fire," he said. "I had to learn," she replied. "I burned down a lean-to once. After that, I paid attention." Quinn poured hot water into a basin and set it near her. "You want to come with me to the barn? I need to check on the mare. She's due before the month's out. Could use another set of eyes to watch her gait." Zadie glanced at Tessa, who was gnawing on a bit of cloth by the stove. "She's too young to walk far, and I can't leave her." "I won't ask you to," he said. "I've got a sling in the loft. My sister made it before she moved east. You can carry Tessa on your back, hands-free, if you want." Zadie's expression shifted, not quite surprise, not quite gratitude. She nodded once. "All right." The barn sat low against the hill. Quinn walked ahead, opening the door and motioning them inside. The air smelled of hay, horses, and the iron tang of old leather. The mare stood in her stall, belly heavy, her ears twitching. "She's having trouble turning in the straw," he said. "Been favoring her right shoulder." Zadie stepped closer, adjusting Tessa in the sling as she crouched. "She's swollen near the fetlock, might be a strain. Has she been slipping?" "Only once." "Ice under the hay last week." Zadie reached out and touched the mare's leg. "Gentle, sure. Keep her walking slow, rub her down with warm cloth at night. If she won't foal soon, she might carry over into October." Quinn leaned against the post, watching her. "You always this good with animals?" "My husband had a pair of mules. I tended them while he worked the lines. I learned when I didn't have a choice." Tessa cooed and gnawed on the edge of the sling. Quinn took a small apple from his coat pocket and handed it over. "You always carry fruit in your coat?" Zadie asked. "Only when I think I'll need it." Her eyes moved over him, steady. "You expect folks to need things often?" Quinn looked at the baby's small fingers gripping the apple. "I've seen enough to know most people need more than they let on." They walked back slowly. The wind had dropped but left a chill behind. Zadie adjusted the sling with a frown. "She's warmer than me," she said. "I've got a coat in the chest," Quinn offered. "Wool, not pretty, but thick. Belonged to my father." "I don't need charity," she said, but her voice lacked bite. "It ain't charity," he replied. "It's a coat, and it's yours if you want it." Zadie was silent a while, then said, "I'll mend the hem if it's frayed." He looked sideways at her. "That would be fair." That night, she sat by the fire mending the coat. Her stitches were neat and small. Tessa slept in a crate lined with wool and a pillowcase. Quinn watched the thread pass through the wool, the way Zadie's hands moved quick, practiced. "You ever think you'd end up here?" he asked. "I thought we'd reach Oregon." She didn't pause her stitching. "He wanted to farm there, said the land was soft and green, said it didn't freeze your breath before dawn." Quinn waited. "We never made it past Topeka," she added. He didn't ask more. Instead, he said, "You're welcome to stay as long as you need, even if you decide not to wear my name." Zadie looked up from the coat. "You still mean to marry me?" "I always meant it," he said, "but I'm not in a rush. You can take your time." She folded the coat across her lap. "I don't need time. I need to know you won't change your mind." "I won't," he said, plain and firm. Zadie nodded, slow. "Then I'll marry you." There was no ceremony, no preacher, no papers just yet. But she said the words, and he said them back, and they stood in the warm light of the fire like something had shifted between them. Not love yet. But the start of something strong, something that could carry weight. The snow came 3 days after she agreed to marry him, not heavy, just a thin veil across the ground, but it lingered in the hollows. The world went quiet beneath it. The trees stood still. Even the chickens scratched more softly in the coop. Quinn built a second cradle from spare pine boards in the evenings. He didn't say what it was for, but Zadie saw the care in the corners, the way he sanded each edge smooth. Tessa had taken to him in her quiet way, watching him closely when he moved through the cabin, one fist in her mouth. She cried less now. Zadie started sewing again. She'd found a bolt of cornflower calico in a trunk beneath the bed. It was stiff with age, but serviceable. She cut it carefully, laying pieces across the table, measuring twice before she set needle to thread. "You got plans for that cloth?" Quinn asked one morning as he washed his hands in the basin. "A dress," she said, "something better than what I came in with." He dried his hands on a flour sack towel. "You planning to wear it for something?" She glanced up. "I thought maybe if we're going to speak vows proper, I ought to look like someone who belongs here." He nodded once. "You already do." Zadie turned back to the fabric, but her mouth softened. "I'd still like to finish it." That afternoon, the mare foaled early. Zadie had been peeling turnips when she heard Quinn call her name low and urgent from the barn. She tied her apron off and gathered Tessa to her chest, wrapping her in the wool coat before stepping out. Inside the stall, the mare was down, flanks trembling. Quinn crouched near her head, one hand on her neck. "She's struggling," he said. "I can't get the shoulders clear." Zadie passed Tessa to him. "Hold her, I need both hands." Quinn looked startled but took the child without a word. Zadie knelt behind the mare, hands already red from the effort. "Push with her," she muttered. "Not against." The foal came with a final surge, slick and shivering. Zadie cleared its nose and rubbed it down with a dry feed sack until it snorted and blinked against the light. When she turned back, Quinn was still holding Tessa, eyes wide at the sight of the newborn horse. He started. Zadie wiped her hands on her apron. "Sometimes you don't get time to think, you just do what needs doing." He looked down at the baby in his arms. "She didn't fuss once. She knows when it matters." They stayed in the barn until the foal stood. Zadie leaned against the stall, watching the mare nuzzle her newborn. Quinn shifted Tessa to his shoulder. "I didn't picture this, you know," he said. "Any of it." Zadie raised a brow. "What did you picture?" "Thought I'd run this place alone. Maybe trade horses, maybe ride south one day. You still could." He looked at her. "I don't want to." Zadie held his gaze. Then, "I never thought I'd be here either." He nodded. "Are you sorry for it?" She looked around the barn, the foal, the mare, the child now asleep on his shoulder. "No." That night she laid the finished dress across the bed. She didn't say anything about it, just smoothed the fabric flat and folded it once, careful. Quinn reached out and touched her wrist. "Zadie," she turned. "I want to speak the vows with you, proper. I want to stand beside you and mean it out loud." She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I'd like that." He stepped closer. "Not tomorrow, not rushed." "When you're ready." She met his eyes. "What if I'm ready now?" He stared at her a moment, then nodded. "Then we'll ride into town in the morning, find someone with a book and a nameplate." Zadie smiled, not wide but warm. "You best wear a clean shirt." He laughed, quiet and real, and reached for her hand. She let him hold it. Neither pulled away. The fire crackled low behind them, and somewhere outside the foal nickered softly, alive and steady in the cold. The road into town was narrow and slick with melt where the sun touched it. Quinn drove the wagon slow, the reins loose in his hands, watching where the ruts dipped. Zadie sat beside him, wrapped in the wool coat, her calico dress folded neatly in a satchel at her feet. Tessa slept against her chest, snug in a sling of quilted muslin stitched the night before. They passed a line of cottonwoods stripped bare, branches black against pale sky. Farther off, smoke rose in slim trails from the chimneys of scattered homesteads. No one waved. Most folks kept to themselves this far north. "You been in town before?" Quinn asked, guiding the team around a washout near the edge of the trail. "Once," Zadie said. "Passed through on the wagon with Everett. We didn't stop long. Just enough to buy a new lantern and a sack of flour." "Want me to walk in first?" She shook her head. I'm not hiding. They reached the outskirts before noon. The town had 2 dusty streets, a livery, a feed store, and a church with slanted eaves. The parson's house stood next to it, whitewashed and narrow. Quinn pulled the wagon up in front, tying the reins to the rail before glancing at Zadie. "You sure?" he said. Zadie adjusted Tessa's sling. Yes, inside the parson was a lean man with a trimmed beard and a stiff collar. He looked up from a worn ledger when they entered, eyes flicking to the baby, then back to their faces. "We're looking to speak vows," Quinn said. "Today, if you'll have us." The parson nodded slowly. "You've brought a witness," Quinn looked at Zadie. "We didn't." The parson set down his pen. "You'll need one, law says so." "I can go to the mercantile," Zadie said. "Ask the clerk." Quinn hesitated. "You want me to come? I'll be quicker alone." She shifted Tessa gently and pushed open the door again. Outside, the wind had picked up again, tugging at the edge of her shawl. She crossed the street, boots soft on the packed dirt. The mercantile smelled of kerosene and dried apples. A girl about 17 stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled to the elbow, sorting tins into rows. "Excuse me," Zadie said. The girl looked up. "You need something?" "I need a witness," Zadie replied. "For a marriage. The parson said it was the law." The girl wiped her hands on her apron. "You marrying the man with the wagon?" "I am," she nodded. "Then I'll come." They walked back together, the girl chatting about her sister's wedding last spring and how the parson didn't smile even once through the whole thing. Zadie listened, saying little. Inside, the parson stood ready, a Bible in one hand. Quinn looked at her when she entered, eyes steady. She stepped beside him. "You got rings?" the parson asked. "No," Quinn said. "Doesn't matter." They said the words, simple, firm, nothing ornate or flowery. Zadie's hand stayed steady in Quinn's. Tessa stirred once and then settled. The girl from the store signed the ledger with a flourish, then slipped out with a wave. Outside, they paused on the steps. The sky had turned flat and gray, the light thin. "You feel different?" Quinn asked. Zadie looked at him. "No, but I feel settled," he nodded. "That's enough." They walked toward the wagon, steps matched. Quinn helped her up, careful of the sling. As they turned onto the road north, Zadie said, "There's a box under the bed I haven't opened yet." "Yours?" He glanced over. "My mother's letters." "From back in Tennessee." "You read them often?" "Haven't in years," she thought for a moment. "I'd like to, if that's all right." He gave a small nod. "You can." They didn't speak again for a while. The wind had calmed. The horses moved steady beneath them. Tessa slept on. By the time the cabin came into view, the clouds had thinned. A shaft of light broke through and lit the roof, pale gold against the dark wood. Zadie looked at it and said, "It does look like a place someone could belong." Quinn gave her the reins. "Then take us home." The snow deepened through October, softening the edges of the land, but inside the cabin, the days settled into quiet rhythm. Each morning before the sun crested the hills, Zadie would rise, wrap Tessa in her shawl, and bring her to the stove while Quinn dressed and stepped out to tend the animals. She'd grown used to the noises of their small world, the creak of the porch boards, the low thump of the barn door, the murmur of Quinn's voice when he spoke to the horses. One evening, after Tessa had drifted to sleep with her thumb pressed against her cheek, Zadie turned toward the hearth where Quinn was oiling the hinges of a cupboard door. "You've been working on that cupboard for 3 days," she said lightly, watching how he tested the door's swing after each turn of the cloth. "I never liked how it stuck in winter," he said. "Figured now's the time to fix it before spring mud keeps me outside." She leaned against the table, hands folded. "Spring feels far off." "Not as far as you'd think," he said. "Seasons come quicker when you're watching someone grow." Zadie looked down at Tessa. "She's heavier every week." "I had to add length to her dress hem yesterday." Quinn set the cloth aside. "You ever think about what comes next?" Zadie's brow creased. "Next, beyond winter, beyond just getting by." She hesitated. "I haven't let myself." "Well," he said, "I have." He walked to the shelf above the bed and pulled down a folded map, spreading it on the table. The corners curled from age. His finger traced a line from the cabin's location to a tract of land along a river bend farther west. 3 miles from here, land never claimed, soils dark, water steady, enough for a second pasture and maybe a small orchard. Zadie stepped closer, studying the marks. Why haven't you moved there? Never had reason to. Now I do. She looked at him. You want to build another house? I want to build our house. This one's got too many ghosts in the wood. My father's voice still lives in the corners. My sister's laughter, too. I want a place where everything begins with us. Zadie's eyes didn't leave the map. I've never had land that was mine. You would. She traced the river line half to herself. We could grow strawberries in spring. I haven't tasted one since Missouri, he nodded. And plums, maybe apples if we plant early. She looked up. I never thought I'd care about fruit trees, he smiled. You care because you can picture staying. She folded the map neatly. When the snow melts, we go see it. We go. That night, after they banked the fire, Zadie lay beside him in the bed they now shared. Her head rested where his shoulder met his chest. Outside, wind pressed against the shutters but never got in. I used to think I'd always be walking, she said quietly. One town to the next, never long enough to put my hands in the soil. You don't have to walk anymore. She felt his hand slide across hers under the quilt. I know, he kissed her forehead, slow and certain. I meant what I said, Zadie. About building something, I believe you. I love you. She lifted her face then, eyes wide but no longer guarded. I love you too. Tessa stirred once in her crate and then stilled again. They didn't speak after that, didn't need to. The snow thickened overnight, blanketing the world in silence. But inside their home, something had taken root, quiet and deep and sure. Years passed. The new house rose slow but steady, built by their own hands on the bend of the river. Zadie planted her strawberries, and by the second spring they bore fruit. Quinn dug fence posts with a boyish grin and claimed the orchard rose with pride. Tessa grew tall and sure-footed, her first words spoken to the mare who still grazed near the barn. She never remembered the hunger or the walking, only the warmth of hands that held her steady. Neighbors came. A schoolhouse opened 5 miles north. Zadie taught letters to the children once a week, her own daughter among them. At night, she read aloud from books Quinn found in town, her voice steady over the crackle of the hearth. They never left, never needed to. And in every corner of that house by the river, there was nothing but the sound of love earned and kept.